You're listening to The Affiliates, a podcast that features stories of entrepreneurs and young leaders who are changing the world for better every single day. My name is Alok Rathod, and I'm a film producer best known for projects such as Choice and The Doorbell. I'm sitting down with leaders to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how to make an impact. In this episode, Janna talks about juggling multiple jobs, her journey of getting back to dancing, and the $1 million question of LA versus New York. Welcome to the show, Janna.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. So, what's your story?
Oh, my story. Well, I am a dancer. My primary focus these days is on ballet, but I call myself a dancer that wasn't a dancer for a long time and now am a dancer again. So I stopped dance when I was 18. I stopped my ballet career. I thought it was over. Um, and moved on to do lots of different things. And then fast forward about 15 years later, and I decided that it wasn't too late to be a ballerina. And I just decided that I was going to do that again. And I'm still doing it. I'm still pursuing it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, how did your education play a role in helping you develop a career?
Mm. Well, in ballet specifically, my dance education, it's one of those things where it's never too late to start training in dance, but I find that if you want to perform at a very technical level, in general, the bulk of the training that you do when you're, young to your teenage years is really integral to your success. And I'm very thankful that I had wonderful training growing up and in high school. So even though I took those 15 years off, I'm very thankful that the training just kind of, it really like set in my body. Um, and as far as non-dance training, when I didn't get accepted into the ballet companies that I auditioned for when I was 18, I really didn't know what else to do. And my parents are in the educational field, and so it was kind of not even up for discussion. It was like, well, you're going to college, or at least that's how I remember it. I think they remember it differently, so it's up for debate. But in any case, I felt like, all right, I have to go to college. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Ended up in theater major, and I as much as I have my particular feelings on education, like I think in today's day and age, you don't really need a college education. That being said, I'm very thankful just for the time that I had in college, just to have a little bit of normalcy and just be on my own, figuring out things as an adult. I don't know in 2018 if you really need that, but for me, it was good.
I would agree that, a lot of degrees these days, you don't really need to have a formal education to get those same skills that you get from a certain degree. And especially something like entrepreneurship, because it's so fluid and it's so like, fast paced these days that
Mm-hmm.
a college degree can give you sort of a mold that you can use to your advantage, like so you can shape it the way you want for your advantage. But then after a point, those skills really, become obsolete, and because the industry and the market has moved, you have to get back to like, the education again, bring yourself up to date, and then like, get into the market again. But I think as far as the structure goes, like a college degree is a good way to like, quickly learn a certain amount of basic skills. But then, like, education these days has become much modular. So you really don't need to get an entire degree. If you really, let's say, want to learn how to become a designer or a dancer, you can do that through like non college degree options also.
Yeah, for sure.
While we are, like, moving more towards a world that's increasingly getting educated online, uh, still feel that, to an extent it would help, but then I wouldn't absolutely rely just on that. So but I think more importantly, I want to go back to the point that you mentioned, that you weren't a dancer for 15 years, but then you got back to dancing. And I think, that requires a lot of strength and courage, because a lot of people are not able to do that. Like, they just give up once things don't work out.
Mm.
And that just goes on to show how much passion you have for the art form. And I think that's really commendable. And I hope that, you keep continue to you continue to grow in your passion, and you come up with more amazing performances.
Thank you so much. I mean, I so appreciate those words, and I can only say that I didn't used to be courageous. I mean, when I didn't originally get accepted um, to what I wanted, I thought that it was too late, and then I tried briefly again when I was 21, and it kind of didn't happen, and so I just quit. I didn't see a way for it to work, and so at this point in my life, all I know to do now is just to not quit anymore. And you could call it courage. You could just call it, I don't know, like a grit or like stubbornness or something. Is like, well, I tried quitting, and that didn't get me fully satisfied in this passion that I have. So yeah, I really think anybody can start again, whether it's dance or something else that they have given up on. It's just the only thing is just to not give up again.
What is your process of developing a great performance?
I got into working a lot of with a lot of brands as a trade show model, trade show hostess. Did a little theater, so in the performing realm, you could say. And I always like to start with story, and I feel like even though my focus now is on ballet, I have the basis of being a storyteller. So whether I'm using my body to tell that story, or I'm using more of my voice, or whatever I'm using, it comes from the background of what's the story I'm telling. Because to be honest, I don't think that most people really care about the technique behind ballet. It's interesting. I've started studying more about the history of ballet, and it really hasn't been around for that long. I mean, we're talking like 400 years or so, and so we're still doing the same ballets
Yeah.
that we were doing hundreds of years ago. And when you look at the ticket sales, and these companies that aren't doing so well, or dancers are just known for just being very underpaid, and you have to think like, are we still being relevant? So I think that coming from a place of storytelling, um, hopefully, or I do, not hopefully, I believe is going to be, it has to be a part of it, because your general audience doesn't really know or care, I don't think, that much about the technique.
Filmmaking is something where, like, um, you really, especially when you're just starting out, you don't really have the liberty to experiment with, like, big ideas and, like, visual effects and $1 million budget. That's just not there. So it really forces you to focus on story, because uh, there's nothing in terms of the visual treatment that can capture the
Mm.
audience. But then, if the story is captivating enough, then the audience is engaged, and that's why it's more difficult, rather, I would say, to make a short film, because it doesn't give you enough time to, like, develop the character, develop the story, develop the context, and all of that stuff. but at the same time it also gives you a lot of it puts you in a position to experiment a lot with different ideas. And I think, like, if you're able to keep scratching that surface to find the gem, then you can really find that story. And people sometimes, come to me and they say, oh, so when's your next film happening? And I'm like, it's not like, I'm making a toy or a candy or stuff like that, which I can like immediately produce, like, uh, on an assembly line. It's just like, it takes time. Like, the story has to be good. You have to bring together resources. So, and filmmaking too, like, from in India at least, like it's been there only for 100 years. But then people have told stories from every angle, every perspective, every aspect, and every permutation combination has been tried. So it's really hard to engage your audience in that sense. But then I think, like, maybe that's why I am trying to, like, explore more of like cross cultural stories where, like, people from different societies or mindset or backgrounds are put in a situation where a good story develops. And I think, like, that's my way of like differentiating my storytelling. But I think I agree that yes, the focus always should be on the story, because
Hmm.
if that connects with people, then
Just even
yeah.
that people
So
are
I agree
asking
with you on
you
that part.
when your next project is coming out, like, yeah, it might not be like the same as an assembly line with like a launch date or whatever, but like speaks to the power of your ability to tell a story because people are excited. That's super cool.
Yeah, and it's a surreal feeling because I don't come from a filmmaking background, nor have I studied filmmaking formally. Everything that I've learned, like, has been on movie sets, and I've been in filmmaking only for 18 months. And I was kind of surprised when, like, the teaser of my latest film, The Doorbell, was launched, and people were just like sharing on their own and, like, asking me when it's coming out. And, like, people are still excited and they still ask about it. But then, of course, post production takes time. So but yeah, I mean, that's something that I surprised myself also, that okay, people are responding in such positive manner. But I guess maybe there was always a storyteller in me, who knew. But I guess, like, if I can make a career
Yes,
out of it
yeah, that
is
is amazing.
a matter of time. But then yeah, it's good to know that people are excited. So how has the people around you, specifically your friends and family, inspired you?
I haven't been formally diagnosed, but like I think that I have some ADD. So I can get so inspired by people that I in the past have been kind of like sidetracked to like, oh, that person's so cool. I'm so inspired by them. I want to do that also. Um, so I for a while there was calling myself a slash generation ninja princess because I did like all the things. Like I was trying to juggle uh, commercial acting and working as a trade show model. I also created and run a networking group on Facebook for trade shows, which has 13 like over 13,000 people on it. I am a worship leader at my synagogue. I sing, I'm doing all these things. And that's cool. But yeah, it's a little bit crazy making. So I definitely get inspired by the people around me. And I think like being in New York, you meet artists for sure, but you meet all kinds of people. So just being like open to learning about people and their stories and like for a second when you're at like a dinner party or a networking event or whatnot, just, taking your earbuds out and being like really open to hearing about people, even if you don't get so sidetracked as I have done by what they do. Like it's cool to learn about their industry and be able to implement it into your industry or into your business. And as far as with family, I mean, my mom has actually a similar story. She danced when she was young. And at that time, this was a different time, but she was told like, oh, you're too fat for ballet. My mom is not fat. But she was told that, and like, oh, you have to do something else. And so my mom has always had this lifelong love of dance and ballet. And so when she put me into classes when I was quite young, she also gave herself a second shot at it. And I mean, she was dancing on pointe, on the toe shoes, the pointe shoes, until quite recently. And even though she doesn't do it professionally, she's very inspirational to me in that, like, you just keep on doing it, as long as you love it.
So here's $1 million question. Which city is better, LA or New York?
LA is definitely better. I mean, you don't have to take the MTA, so there's that alone. Um, and I was going to say you have a beach. I guess we have a beach here as well. I don't know.
Right.
The thing is for me is that I had always wanted to move to LA, and so when I finally did, I was willing to put up with its nonsense because there's a lot of nonsense. And when I moved to New York, it wasn't like forcibly against my will or anything like this, but I was set up with my now husband who lived in New York. And so I literally like only moved here for him. So that's going to come with this like, every annoyance of the MTA and like someone asking you for money and the, all the, trash in the summer smell and whatnot. I'm like, ugh. But I like it now. We're cool for the most part. I could ask you the same question since you put me on the hot seat.
Oh, okay.
It goes both ways.
You're putting me on the spot also now. Okay. So I think, I was already kind of like, a bit more uh, partial towards New York because the first time I got to US, I landed in New York and I was staying with my school friend for a few days. And although I've lived in a big city like Mumbai in India, but New York is like, a whole new level because of all the skyscrapers and like, there's always like people on the run. And Mumbai is kind of like that. Like I would argue that Mumbai is like the New York of India. But then purely in terms of like the diversity of people and the experiences that they have, I think like New York stands out a bit for me, and I like it here
Mm,
more because the first time I was in Los Angeles, I was stuck in traffic for 2 hours. So that wasn't a good first impression. Okay. Plus the sunny climate didn't really like make things better. So while like I'm a filmmaker and ideally I should be like in LA and like doing all the stuff there, I would much rather prefer to be here and like just make things happen here. Not to say that I absolutely hate Los
man,
Angeles. I
you're
love
just trash
Los
talking
Angeles,
some
but I
LA.
don't love it as much as I love New York.
I'm
So
just, I'm kidding.
it's
I'm
that.
kidding.
Yeah, I think I'm going to receive a lot of hate mail as well for this. But how would you say is your leadership style different than others?
I like to lead by example. Being that I have done so many different things, I feel like I'm pretty good. I am good at a lot of different things, and I have done a lot of different things. So when I'm leading things, when I'm managing, when I'm producing a project or whatnot, I like to get in there and do it myself as well, almost to the point where I'm like, oh, I need to delegate more. Um, but I like to lead by example, and I feel like I'm an empathic leader as well because I know what it's like to be working from the bottom. I've waited tables. I've done so many side jobs as well that I just have a lot of empathy for people in the work that they're doing and in the stages of life that they're in. So yeah.
That's interesting that you've done like a lot of side jobs and then like you got back to dancing and like you're producing projects and all of that because I really think that's your superpower, in the sense that, because you have been through, like, all these different situations and all these different scenarios, that itself
Mm,
sets you up for success, because now you have experienced life more than the other people have. And that, like, reflects in the way you lead people. And that is something that, I really feel that people should do more of. While money will be helpful in your life, it won't give you the happiness. And much worse, like, later in the life, although you might have lots of money, you would still be juggling with the regret that, okay, had I been doing this earlier in my life, it would have been like, my life would have been different. So I tend to believe that, people should try a lot of stuff initially, and it doesn't have to be like big, fancy, expensive things. Like, just taking up something that captures your imagination would, like, be enough to, like, help you grow a certain skill. For example, like, when I was in
mm,
college, I was training to become a dancer along with my business education. So, like, I had no idea. Like, after a point, I just gave up on the idea to become a professional dancer, because I thought that, okay, I got a job at JP Morgan, and it's investment banking. There's lots of money, and, like, all of that stuff. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is, like, what I'll do all my life. But then I quickly realized that, okay, while the job pays you really well, it comes at a cost of your, like, personal time and personal growth. So I figured that, okay, maybe I should try, like, something else. And while I was with my family business, and, like, going along with that, it
mm.
laid the foundation of the drama company which I had in India, which then became the film company in New York. But then, had I not been exposed to the art of performance while I was in college, I would never have been able to, like, take that idea, turn that into a business, and to be able to grow it in New York. And I think so. Everything that you go through in your life comes in handy at some point. So people shouldn't be scared of trying that. But it's great that, you try to delegate as much as you can to your subordinates, and, of course, lead by example
I could say the
in the
same thing
whole.
about you. Like, how many people would like start dancing in college, and or even consider um, putting this high paying job aside, or starting filmmaking. Like, yeah, it's so cool. Like, that to me is inspiring. Inspiring me to keep on, like, you know doing my thing.
Okay, thank you so much. It means a lot coming from you. What kind of impact would you like to see your work have on people?
I really like to make people laugh. As I start developing my own projects and being choosy about things that I'm in, I love the thought of combining ballet with humor, or like just a lightness. Like, I just was involved in a piece with a small ballet company in New York City called Ballet Populaire, and we did like a circus ballet where the other ballet dancer and I played horses, and the other male ballet dancer was our like ringleader, and it just was light and fun and funny, and I was laughing when I saw the finished project today. So hopefully, lots of other people will laugh when they see it as well. Um, but so that's the short term, just in the projects that I'm involved in, and then longer term goals. Eventually, I would love to inspire people that it's not too late for them to dance again. When I talk to people and they hear my story, and they reach out to me and they say, oh my gosh, thank you, I've just decided to take my first dance class in 6 months, like that literally like makes my day. Is so awesome to me to hear that. And so I'd like to keep on doing that, whether it's me like writing a book or developing a coaching program. I'm not sure yet, because I just want to focus on my dance right now. But on a long term level, I would love to just inspire people.
You're inspiring me with everything that you do, because uh, it's not easy to, like, get back to something after a long time and then be consistently good at it. And I see that, like, all around me with my friends, or, like, even my dad for that matter. He had to drop out of
Mm-hmm.
school, so he was in ninth grade and he dropped out to help my grandfather with family business. Dad now can afford, like, as I said, every luxury that life has to offer, and he could easily go back to school and finish his high school diploma, or, like, take some other courses and get more educated on how to better run his business and things like that. But I think he has just, like, given up on it, in the sense that, he's like, yeah, what's the point? Like, I can still go back and do it. But I don't think that, I've grown as a student all these years. So, like, my learning skills are still very rusty from that conventional educational point of view. But I think, it's really worth admiring that, you are doing all of this stuff. And I'm pretty sure that, you'll leave behind, like, a body of work that will continue to entertain
Mm.
and
Thank
inspire
you. Yeah,
people.
God willing.
So, what's next? What are the exciting projects that you're working on right now, and what can the listeners expect from you going ahead?
Yeah, well, definitely lots more dance because I am, for the first time in my life, focused on that.
Yeah.
So I have a couple projects that I'm super excited are coming out. I worked for a couple days on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel as a dancer, which is so right up my alley because I love all things vintage and comedy, and it's a great show. And I was humbled to be able to work as a dancer on it. And I'm also working with an organization in New York City called the Hip Hop Dance Conservatory to produce a dance film for myself. So I'm very thankful for them. They're an amazing organization. And just keeping up with my training. I have a big goal, which is to get into the Metropolitan Opera Ballet for next season. So I'm just continuing with my training and just being very open and transparent, I guess, about this, what I consider to be a reach goal for me. And then, if one of your listeners has like, an uncle that is on the board, you just send them my way. I will dance for them. Um,
Right.
just as pro bono, whatever. Yeah, so that is what's up for me. And, as far as other projects that might get thrown into the mix, because I'm always auditioning, um, I will keep people updated, or I would keep updated on my website, which is just my full name.com. So Janna, like banana, Janna, Davis, Davis.com.
Perfect. Uh, these are certainly very interesting projects, and I am looking forward to it. And I hope that, you find uh, success in all of these projects, and all of them do well, and you keep continue to grow as a dancer. Before we wrap up, because you have a lot of experience in dancing, if you have to give one piece of advice to anyone who is looking to become a professional dancer, what would it be? Especially because a lot of people don't realize that it's a very competitive industry to get in. So if you can give just one advice, then what will that be?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think of focusing on what makes you unique. Like in business, as I'm sure it's your unique selling point. So a lot of times, dancers, we're perfectionists and we get focused on like, oh my gosh, how can I get more turnout or skinnier or whatever, any of these things. And I definitely can fall like prey to that type of thinking as well, or victim, I guess, to that type of thinking as well. But the more I just embrace, and I think the advice goes for anyone, the more you embrace what makes you different in today's landscape, I think that's what's going to make you successful. So if it's that, you're quirky or you have a unique look or even like unique style, don't worry about fitting in when everyone is at the audition and wearing, tan tights because that's like quote unquote what you should do. Like, don't wear tan tights then. Like, be different. Within the confines of like what's appropriate. Like, don't go to like a ballet audition wearing like a costume or something. Like, don't be ridiculous, but like focus on what makes you unique and special, and then keep on doing that like all the way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great piece of advice, and I can certainly say it's a good advice because I've trained to become a dancer for 4 years, and this is something that, a lot of people I feel certainly get bogged down by being extremely particular about like how they look or how they do a certain step and things like that. But I think like, these are all good words, like golden words of wisdom. So I think like a lot of people who are looking to get into dancing will heed to your advice. Thank you so much for being on the show. It was amazing to have you here, and I certainly enjoyed like learning from your experiences and all the insights that you have shared. And I wish you luck for all the future endeavors.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure working with you, and can't wait to see your next film projects.
Yeah, thank you. You've been listening to The Afflatus. If you like what you have heard, do us a favor and share the episode with your network on social media. It helps. If you would like to know more about the show or share your opinion on the episodes, connect with us on facebook.com/unciafilms. That's facebook.com/unciafilms. If you would like to support the crowdfunding campaign of my latest film, The Doorbell, then click on the link mentioned in the description. Even a single dollar helps. Thank you so much for listening to The Afflatus.